All right, so thank you once again for joining us at Infamous Horrors. And I got to say, your performance in Rent a Pal was just amazing. How did you come together with this project?
So this was, I mean, the whole project was a labor of love. John contacted me, I want to say late August, beginning September of 2018. And I had reached out to him because I was going through a divorce and he had just gone through a divorce. And I was just checking in. We had worked on a project together called Hoax a handful of years ago. And, I just reached out to him and he wrote me back and was like, funny that you should send me an email because I've got this script and I think you'd be perfect for it. So he sent it my way. I was in California shooting a wedding and I got the script in the hotel room and I was like 9 pages in and it was blowing me away. It was like nothing I had ever read before. So creative, so heartfelt. I could tell it was different. So I wrote him back right away. I flew through the script and wrote him back and was like, I have to be a part of this. What do we have to do? Let's make this happen. And that was the beginning. So that was September of 18. And then we started shooting in late November of 18. The rest, as they say, is history.
And I'm so glad you brought that out, that it was like really heartfelt because it was. It kind of almost reminded me of a cult classic favorite of mine called Magic with Anthony Hopkins, where he plays a psychiatrist not psychiatrist, but what do you call it? Ventriloquist dummy.
Oh, yeah, right.
And that's what Will Wheaton was to you in this. He was just kind of that, dummy that was you just kept putting in the VCR, and he just kept kind of like being the devil on your shoulder kind of thing.
Yeah.
And again, this movie is about finding yourself too. So, this has all the elements of just a movie. Like, it would be so many layers, not just a horror movie, but it would have that layers of finding yourself and wanting to change and realizing you never really had to change. And then, like, that must have been something really great to read in the script as well, seeing that whole plot just unravel.
Absolutely. And you know what's really strange? It's like, it's all about timing, right? In this,
Right.
Especially in this industry, having the right movie at the right time really set us apart. To partner up with IFC and I think this movie speaks to what a lot of us have been going through with isolation and relationships with a screen. Like, I think the timing of this movie is so specific, given kind of the landscape of the world right now. I just think it's going to speak volumes to the people that are watching it.
Yeah, and I personally love this. I think it's probably in my top 5 of horror films so far this year because it was just so unique. And like you said, it came at the right time. A lot of people are isolated in this time, and they are looking something to attach themselves to, like how you attached yourself to the Rent a Pal videos in this. And another thing, drive-ins are coming back in this day and age, and this feels like a throwback drive-in style movie that you would watch at like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock p.m. At a drive-in.
I would love to watch this movie at a drive-in, you know what I mean? Like, it's the perfect drive-in film.
And that's what the vibe I kind of got from this. Like, man, this is kind of like, not Grindhouse, but it is kind of like that drive-in B horror movie that you would find in like the mid 80s that would kind of be obscure, not the mainstream titles like The Evil Dead, but it would just kind of, be like a hidden gem you would find walking through Blockbuster.
Which is funny because IFC has really been investing in the drive-in. Has a lot of success with the drive-in. So it's just kind of fitting that this movie's coming out now where the drive-ins are kind of like at a resurgence. They're having a drive-in screening in Chicago on Wednesday, and we're doing a live question and answer Zoom kind of thing that were going to be on the drive-in screen.
Oh, and that's going to be really awesome.
Yeah, after the movie. And I think that's like amazing. It's just, I'm really kind of thrilled at that opportunity.
And I want to talk a little bit on your character. You brought up you were going through a divorce. Was any of that settled when you kind of like were having like breakdown moments in this? I mean, you don't have to get anything too specific, but.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, just as actors, we kind of bring our life experience to the character. And, you know, I have a really interesting relationship with my mother, who battles, you know, kind of mental condition her whole life. And, you know, so, and in turn, my whole life has been wrapped up in that. And so, you know, my relationship, you know, David's relationship with his mother is very specific. He's a caregiver for her. He's kind of given up his life to take care of his mom. And so, you know, both that kind of unconditional love, but also years later, that kind of resentment that may be subconscious has built up in his mind, kind of what she represents, even though the unconditional love is there and he doesn't even realize what has been building this whole time, you know, because he's a 40-something, never really had a girlfriend. And he's a lost man that has lost himself. And we, you know, as this movie starts, we're picking up with him trying to reach out, you know, video rendezvous dating service, trying to find love. And I think, you know, there is a lot of myself, the pain that I was going through. I mean, it's a lot connected to with my relationship with my mother. I think I was able to access kind of a dark place within myself that really brought an authenticity to David. And I think a lot of people are going to connect to that authenticity. And, you know, watching the movie, it just came together so wonderfully in its vision. The cinematography in this movie is just breathtaking. The DP Scott Park just has a beautiful eye, and he paints with light, and his vision, you know, through the lens is this whole other kind of character to the film that I think a lot of people are going to appreciate. Yeah,
and we talked on it a little bit, but what I really appreciated was how they handled writing Will Wheaton's character in the film.
Oh, yeah. So I mean, I'm sure you probably know, but it's all based off of a tape called Rent a Friend. That was an actual video cassette in the 80s.
I did not know about that. So I'm.
Oh, yeah. So Rent a Friend was an actual videotape in the 80s where exactly what you see in the movie, a gentleman is talking right into the lens and is trying to connect with the person watching and is saying stuff like, I just want to be your friend. One of the first things John did was he sent me the link to this like 45-minute tape of the actual Rent a Friend and the dialogue that happens. And it is, I mean, as far as source material goes, it is all that I needed. It was simple. It was wonderful. So as I do all my lines on note cards, and I kind of keep a little thing and I keep it in my pocket when I'm on set. So as I'm doing my note cards, I'm watching the Rent a Friend, and I'm just like kind of submerging myself in how would it be to connect with something like this? How would it be if I'm at a place that is so kind of lonely and lost that I get this tape and somehow the answers to the questions that he's saying are lining up? Because that's what happens in Rent-A-Pal, is like those questions that he says, reaching out through the screen, are just resonating with David and where he is in his life. And so, yeah, the actual Rent a Friend you should check it out. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'm going to see if it's on YouTube or anything, because the 80s is a little bit before my time. I was born in 1990, so I have never heard of Rent a Friend before. So that's going to be a little homework after that.
Yeah, I had never heard of it either, so it was pretty fascinating to find.
And Will Wheaton just brought so much charismatic to this character he had. Just how was it, like, filming, I guess, for his part, if you knew anything about the filming for his part, because it was on a VHS, how was it like just kind of going back and forth between his part on the VHS and yours
So,
with the dialogue?
yeah. So the way that worked out was we had began shooting on the film, and we shot 3 weeks without Will because of schedule, both on his part and my part. There was a chunk of shooting that we couldn't do until we had his footage. So we shot for 3 weeks, and then we took a break, and I was doing a live stage play at the time. And then Will was scheduled for like mid-January 2019. He came in for a day, and he knocked it out of the park. Like his performance in this, and I can't wait for the world to see it because it's a defining moment in his career.
It really is.
Yeah, as far as the work that he's laid down, he brought so much to the character. It really is just dynamic, wonderful work. So he came in, and it was all in studio. He did his whole day. It was a long day for him, and he just brought so much preparation to the role. Then he left the next morning. We did some photos before he left and got to hang out and kind of chat. I really wanted to meet him and just kind of connect with him as a human so that I could bring that to the performances that required me and him on a screen. Because as you see, all our stuff is screen to human. I never did anything with him live and in person. So what they did was they took the footage from that day and they cut together what was called the Andy tapes. And they sent me the Andy tapes. And so as I was prepping for those last 2 weeks of shooting, I was prepping with the footage that I had from Will Wheaton. So that gave me an opportunity to kind of connect with him and the character that he was playing, to kind of like really have a relationship with Andy, because I thought that was so important. You know, I really, if the audience doesn't believe that David truly has found a friend in Andy, then the whole film is shot. It doesn't work because the premise is hard enough as it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think what was unique about this film is that we approached it as a drama. So we approached the film as a real living and breathing slice of life. And I think it's what makes it work on multiple levels, but you know, it's what makes it a really good horror film is because it's a drama, you know, and for me, it's more of a suspense thriller than a horror, but I think it appeals to a lot of different genre fans. And, you know, so that's essentially what I did was I worked with those Andy tapes. I really made a connection with Will's character, and I brought that to shooting in those last 2 weeks. And what they did on set, which was really quite brilliant, was they wired up the computer to the TV that I was working with, and they would play the footage and then pause it whenever I needed to like have a beat in between the things that he was saying, or if I'm waiting for a response. That Jimmy, who produced this, was kind of the puppet master. And so he would essentially control Will Wheaton, his footage that was coming through on the TV. And we would, you know, take after take, he would just dial it back. He moved the cursor over, start the footage for me. And I think it was because of the way they handled that the relationship between Andy and David really played out quite beautifully.
And I'm glad you brought the drama aspect of it out, that you started this as like a slice of life. And I think that's what gives Rent a Pal more viewing opportunities, because there are so many, especially now, with a lot of like jump scare generation horror films.
Totally.
There is not a whole lot of staying power after the movie ends. But with Rent a Pal, it's something that kind of sticks with you, and it just has that revisiting power that a lot of suspense and thriller movies don't have nowadays. And I hope the audience really takes to that as well.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think, listen, like the whole thing for me with this film and with David was that it was a real human being on screen. Like, it was someone that I thought that the audience could connect with. I think the little video rendezvous profile that David does in the film kind of sums up who David was. A very likable guy, was honest, was just trying to find a real connection. And he just, you know, I don't want to give any spoilers because I want to make sure that everyone watches the film. But I think audiences are going to connect with David in a real way. And it was very important to me that I made this character someone that was authentic, someone that was real, someone that people could see themselves in. So that as they go on this journey with David, they're rooting for him. They're rooting for him during the whole film, I think. And then, you know, crazy shit happens.
Yeah, and that's another thing I really love. Because this is a film where you're rooting for David, and then you're like, wait a minute, what just happened?
Yeah, right. And then you start to question why you were rooting for him.
Right,
like,
it kind of like, it does like a 180. You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah. No, that's really what I loved about the script in general, was it was this real person that was having a tough time, and then, you know, extraordinary circumstances, right?
Correct. And before we go, I just want to give a quick shout out to Lewis Leslie, who commented on my Facebook status when I was getting ready to interview you. He said, I just love the BLF. There's nothing but great things about him. So just wanted to give a quick shout out to Lewis Leslie on this before he left.
Absolutely. A big shout out to my buddy Lewis, who we made films a long time ago. I love that guy, and he's a big horror fan. Yeah.
And he said he's really glad you're getting recognition now. So
I appreciate that a lot, man. I really do.
So thank you so much for joining us at Infamous Horrors again. It's been really fun.
It's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much, AJ, and best of luck to you.
You too.